The JERD Nation Podcast.
We are going to discuss 30 years of The Undertaker and what he's meant to the WWE. So we're going to start off with the best era. Lucas, what do you think is Undertaker's best era?
It might be because of the age thing, but honestly, I think it's from probably 04 to when he went into the vegetative state in 2010. The kind of like hybrid era of where he wasn't the total like deadman. He still had a little bit of the American badass stuff. So like he was wrestling really solid matches. He still had the deadman aspects. I think that's probably where his quality was. Character was perfect, and yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah, I think especially 06. I was really big on when he first came back as the dead man because it was kind of new to me. I mean, like I obviously watched some of the stuff in the 90s as a kid, but it was kind of refreshing, you know, because I grew up mainly more with biker era, but because he stuck around so long, I'm more familiar with the dead man now, obviously. But I think his best. I mean, I really liked his Big Evil phase. I think that's when he was in his best shape. I think that's when his best mic work was. But if we're talking just strictly gimmick-wise, and personality-wise, and in-ring performance-wise, I think the Phenom era is probably the best. I mean, his stuff with Batista is top-notch.
I kind of have to disagree, though.
What do you think?
So if we talk about overall all around, then I say the Ministry is the best. I favor the Phenom era like everyone else does, but as far as overall, I think the Ministry Taker has everything that you want out of a superstar.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, story-wise, what he was doing with the Ministry was crazy stuff, man. Like, you won't ever really see what he did, you know, with the whole "it's me, Austin" stuff. So, are you talking about his in-ring work as well? Or are you just talking entertainment-wise?
I mean, everything overall. Overall, I think that he was like, as a complete package, everything was there in that era. The Phenom had way better matches and stuff like that, but, you know, the promos weren't cut the same. You know, There wasn't extra to it. There wasn't the extraness added to it.
I agree. I think as far as overall package, I would agree with you that the Ministry era is the best by far. I think Ministry, as far as like, I love what I was getting ready to say is I love The Undertaker, but his promos past 2002, honestly, past Big Evil are kind of They're very short, zombie Frankenstein-esque like promos, but Ministry Taker would talk that shit and back it up. Same thing with Big Evil Taker. So yeah, I agree with you, man. I think overall, if you had to pick an era that was the best for Taker, it's hard to dispute the Ministry era. As far as in-ring work, though, I mean, I think we can all agree that the Phenom era from 06 to the cutoff kind of gets, I say 11. Some people say 12 because of the Hell in a Cell. But what I will say is up until he did the Mohawk, his work was phenomenal.
Going back to the point about like Undertaker not really cutting any promos, I think like that's what feels so good about watching like these Broken Skull sections in the Last Ride documentary, because like we rarely like heard him really like talk as the Phenom. You know, we didn't really have him go into like detail about stuff like that. Every promo was pretty like short and right to the point,
Which personally I enjoyed. Because Undertaker was one of the only characters, in my opinion, that didn't really need to talk. All of the in-ring shit spoke for itself. All his like moments backstage when you're scaring the fuck out of people spoke for itself. I don't think he ever really needed to talk.
I agree with Lucas on that because I remember when he premiered, you know, just the presence of the Undertaker and the essence he brought to the ring when he first premiered was something that wrestling had never seen before. And I mean, the evolution of the character of the Undertaker from that point to the end was just, I mean, it's unrivaled. You're never going to see another wrestler from start to finish evolve the way he did. Like, he's really one of a kind. So I mean, for me, that in the era talk, I got to just look at the early career, probably like 87 to 90, around in there. He just. I remember watching him come to the ring and people just staring at him like, I mean, they were genuinely creeped out, and it just got better and better and better the longer it went.
Yeah, because I mean, when he showed up at Survivor Series in 1990, like they panned to the camera to see a lot of the fans' faces, and kids were scared shitless. Like it was pretty crazy. But yeah, I see your point, Lucas. I agree with that. I mean, obviously, with wrestling, being able to talk is a big thing. But when you have a zombie-esque character, he doesn't really need to. And I think I agree heavily with what Ameen was saying. It's kind of cool, honestly, to see him being so outspoken and doing all these interviews and talking about stuff. Because I mean, you would have never guessed 10 years, maybe even 5 years ago, that the Undertaker would be so open about his life and just like answering all the questions and stuff. And I mean, you can tell he's still secretive about certain things. Like, he doesn't like name dropping and stuff, but I mean, it's refreshing.
I feel like a lot of the safe answers are Kane, obviously. Kane is obviously a safe answer. I feel like Batista is a safe answer. But, I just don't think anybody was having like the type of year that Edge was having. Like, Edge was just on go from start to finish, and that rivalry was just amazing to see, like how they kept it. Because like a lot of times, like with rivalries now in WWE, they're unable to keep everything fresh because they just repeat the same segment over and over and over again. And it was like for 2 years they were able to keep it so fresh and just throw in many different matches, many different promos and stuff like that. And I feel like that was really like some great work. So I mean, I may be in a minority here compared to everyone else, but I definitely think that Edge was one of my favorite rivalries to watch.
I agree, man. What him and Edge did it's very hard to be able to stretch a rivalry that long. So between him being banished from Vicky to then Edge cheating on Vicky and then Vicky reinstating the Undertaker, it was such great storytelling, and that's what makes SmackDown so far ahead of Raw during that era, in my opinion. I think his match with Edge at the Hell in a Cell, it's SummerSlam, is one of the best Hell in a Cell. It honestly might even be. It's probably one or two for me. It's either that match or who I'm going to bring up now. I think, since you listed Edge, I think Brock is Undertaker's best rival in terms of.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off. That is a great answer because, like, especially considering like what they went through the entire year of 2002, it was just straight heat from start to finish.
I love that they were able to. I'm a big fan. It doesn't always work, and I think that's why I was so invested in Edge and Randy. I'm a really big fan of bringing storylines back with the same wrestlers when they've evolved a lot more, because Brock was a phenomenal athlete in 2002, but when he went to the UFC and then he went back to the WWE, he was able to be more of a threat. And the fact that they were able to have him in Undertaker's streak and then have Undertaker come back and kick him in the balls to cost him the title. And then that led to their second Hell in a Cell match, which is you can debate if it's better or not. I went back and rewatched both of them. I'm still partial to the No Mercy Hell in a Cell match, but I mean, the one that they had in 2015, the Hell in a Cell match that they had was phenomenal. So I think Brock, when I think of his best opponent, I think Brock. What do you got, Lucas?
I was going to say Edge. The stuff with Edge was absolutely phenomenal. They played off each other perfectly, and yeah, their TLC match at One Night Stand Extreme Rules is honestly my favorite TLC match ever, which is very unpopular when you think of like the three-way ones. But yeah, their WrestleMania matches, one of Undertaker's best. The Streak versus Streak, even though Edge wasn't actually undefeated at Mania, their Hell in a Cell match was fantastic. And the way they started it with Undertaker and Batista in the steel cage, and then Undertaker winning and Edge switching from Raw to SmackDown, cashing in the Money in the Bank was just phenomenal because no one saw it coming.
Yeah, him showing up and cashing in after Mark Henry beat the living shit out of Taker was just insane, But that brings me to kind of a new topic. When you think of an underrated feud, what do you guys think of?
The Big Show. I always enjoyed watching them go at it. What was it called? The Punjabi prison match.
Yeah.
Always enjoyed that. And another one that I always felt was really underrated was his little feud he had with Yokozuna casket match.
That's a good one.
Felt like that was like those two big guys going at it, man. It's almost comical to look back on it now. Yokozuna was a monster of a man, but it was just it was stuff that we'd never seen before.
Ameen, who do you got?
Honestly, I'm not sure if this is underrated, but I want to say Bret Hart because, Bret is an exceptional worker. He can work with anybody. So I think working with Taker, Taker was a little bit frustrated with the title runs that he had being so short, and getting to work with Bret to put him over in another title reign. I think that was definitely something I enjoyed a lot because, everyone who follows me on Twitter knows I'm not the biggest Bret Hart fan, but I've always respected everything that Bret Hart does. So just, the kind of like run that Bret Hart was on, I mean, I know this is about Taker, but Bret was on a great run before like his exit. So, he basically got to work with like a lot of guys who, we came to love during the Attitude Era and appreciate as legends now. And I think Taker getting the chance to work with Bret before Bret leaves was definitely a great thing for him.
I agree. Bret was Taker, he's said several times on different podcasts and interviews that he loved working with Bret because Bret gave him the chance to show everyone that he could actually wrestle, like you mentioned, that he wasn't just I'm going to beat your ass. Here's an uppercut, here's a big boot, and here's a choke slam. Like him and Bret had actual technical matches, and so it's hard to imagine that Taker would be where he's at without that little run that he had against Bret.
I'm between one of two things. Either 2005 with Randy. I think Randy was Undertaker's first, like, absolutely fantastic WrestleMania match. And there's not a lot of feuds that can go an entire year and still be fresh, still be enjoyable. So, Randy, I also really don't know if Randy would still be here if it wasn't for that feud. I think it put Randy on the map. It made him, like, believable that he can stand with everyone else. And also, the AJ feud from late last year, early this year, was absolutely fantastic. The Undertaker, the last couple years, hasn't really felt like the Undertaker. He's been just honestly felt like an old man that didn't know how to retire. But the AJ match at Mania, but then the entire feud in general just made Undertaker feel like Undertaker again.
He's had so many great feuds. You don't know where to line it up.
You don't necessarily know where to rank it in terms of like his all-time feuds, but I think that's a really like great feud that everyone can reach and go back to.
Yeah, great. So that's what I was getting at. I definitely think that's one of his, I would say, overlooked, not underrated.
Lucas, you said something that kind of got my brain thinking. I just want to interject. You talked about the Undertaker getting older and maybe not knowing when to hang it up. Talk about that a little bit because I'm just curious about maybe all of you can talk on that, but what's your thoughts on that? Because You know, you see that sometimes where guys don't hang it up soon enough, or they hang it up too soon. So, is he hanging it up at the right time, or is he off a little bit? What's your thoughts?
Undertaker is such an entity that you can never really know if he's hanging it up too soon, because there's so many opportunities that they haven't scratched on. Like, they've been teasing him and the Fiend for the last couple weeks. The thing that makes it hard for me to decide whether I think he's hanging it up too early or not is COVID making it to where there's no crowds. It's very hard for me to believe that someone as iconic and as beloved as The Undertaker, that he won't want to go out in front of a crowd. That's kind of where I'm at with it. You never know with Undertaker, man, because, I mean, he said he was done like, what, 7 or 8 times?
Yeah.
Okay, so personally, I think that he should never wrestle a full match ever again. I think that all those times that he came back, it was just him personally feeling like he couldn't go out like that, which he's spoken on like multiple times. But, you know, honestly, I was satisfied with, you know, letting him walk away after the streak because he had nothing else left to accomplish. There was nothing that you could do like going forward. So now, like, those WrestleMania matches in between the streak and the last ride were just like, I want to say honestly, a clumsy mess. I thought he was done in 2010 when he had those terrible matches with Kane, but that was just him being injured. And then he came back and did his 1 year thing. So if he would have retired with Kane, we wouldn't have gotten, like, you know, some more great WrestleMania matches with Triple H and Shawn again, you know. But I thought he was pretty much done back in 2010. And I honestly don't want to see him wrestle again after what the last ride was. The last ride was so great, and to know that we wouldn't have gotten anything like that if it wasn't because of COVID. You know, COVID was kind of a blessing in disguise with that.
I think that I'm kind of in the minority here, but I really think that if him and the way that he was training, I think him and AJ could have had a good match, and I don't know that it would have been AJ. I think AJ would have made it easier on him, but I don't know that AJ would have carried him.
I don't disagree with that. I think that Taker could have given AJ a good match, but AJ was obviously going to lead that match, being the younger.
Right. No, I agree. I agree.
But I'm saying I don't think the match would be close to as good as the last ride was. The last ride was perfect from start to finish. Everything you needed, and all the extra added elements to it. That was just great cinema, great wrestling, great fighting, whatever you want to call it. It was just great. I don't think we would have gotten anything. Yeah, I don't think we would have gotten anything better than that had they did go through with wrestling in person.
I can agree with that. I think it's a double-edged thing. It could go either way. So I definitely agree with what you're saying. Lucas, what do you think?
Selfishly, I want to see him fight at Mania next year. Just from a fan standpoint, I've never seen The Undertaker live. I want to see The Undertaker.
So all 4 of us, we're going to go to WrestleMania this year. Literally all 4 of us. So I felt robbed because I was so excited to see The Undertaker and to see him at his show, because Ameen, to my knowledge, you and Ameen have both seen Undertaker in person. I have not.
I've seen Undertaker twice, and it's been the greatest moment of my life.
So you understand, like, why selfishly we kind of want, and that's why, health-wise, that's why I mentioned what I said earlier. I would rather see Taker show up and chokeslam someone and disappear. That's all. I just want to hear the music. I want to feel the entrance. Like, I want to soak that all in. And COVID took that away from me.
Unselfish standpoint, I think he should have hung it up. I don't want to say after the streak, because his matches with Brock in 2015 were great. But honestly, probably after the Hell in a Cell against Brock in 2015, I think that's when his match quality went drastically down. I don't think he should have done any of the Saudi shows. I don't think it's been a good one yet. I don't want to say he's becoming a parody of himself, but he's going down that route. I don't want to say he can't let go, but Vince can't let go of him, which is one of the problems that they just don't develop stars now.
I think with Taker, he himself recently especially has come out and said he doesn't want to be a parody of himself, and he wants to hang it up whenever it's his time. I think Taker loves the business so much, and I think he kind of sees what you just brought up. I feel like he thinks he can help establish a couple more stars personally. So I don't know that I'll ever take an Undertaker retirement announcement seriously as I should, which makes it sad because I would love to soak up the emotion of being like, damn, like this is really it. Like my childhood is walked off. This is it. Like he's done for good. But it's kind of like he said in the last ride, you know, in case of emergency, break glass, the Undertaker's there. So I don't think what I've been reading is that he wants to step up with the performance center and he wants to start training people more. But I don't know, man. I feel like his love for the business is partially why he stays. I think he does it for the love, not for the money.
Imagine the Undertaker as a coach at the PC. Like that would be crazy. It's already crazy that Shawn and Taker's there. Shawn and Hunter is there all the time. But imagine Shawn, Hunter, and Taker always at the PC. Just vibes.
It's hard to argue that there's a better crowd that you would want. I mean, Steve Austin said he's kind of wanting to get involved with it too. So like, those are like four of the greatest wrestling minds you could ever want to learn from, all at your disposal. There's really no excuse to not soak that stuff up, but that goes more to booking rather than the wrestlers themselves.
I went to the Royal Rumble in 2017, and that's when like Goldberg, Brock Lesnar, and Undertaker were all three in it. And good God, it was just sad. Just to you could tell he's always had like the hip problems, and good Lord, in that match especially. Because the Royal Rumble, you're not expecting like everybody to move around a little bit slower. It's a very chaotic match. So just to see him as like an old kind of beat down guy just made me super sad. Who am I to judge when somebody retires though? I could never do what he does for 30 plus years. Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, I could never do that. But I personally think he should have retired after the Extreme Rules tag team match with Roman Reigns. I would say, obviously, never should have done the Saudi matches, but after that tag team match, like it's your yard now, should have just left, in my own personal opinion.
That's the thing with Taker, man, is like it's been like a seesaw, like a teeter-totter, because if we say, hey, he should have retired at this point, then we cut out some of the moments that he's had that were great. And that's kind of what sucks. It's like, it still feels like he's leaving. There's still something he could bring to the table, but who knows, man? I mean, it's hard for me to imagine that he's actually fully done. He signed a 15-year deal to the WWE. The motherfucker's going to be there till he's like 75. So it's hard for me to imagine that within the next couple years, he doesn't lace up the boots again, whether that's for a chokeslam and a tombstone or whether it's for a match. But I don't think he's got another match in him. I think personally, it's kind of sad because he says he thinks that us fans wouldn't want to pay to see him just show up and chokeslam people. But as a fan, like, I care more about his health than I do about him doing a 5-star match. Right. So I'm perfectly okay with paying $200 to go to, or $200 or whatever, to go to a pay-per-view, to go to a Mania where he's on the card and all he does is show up and chokeslam someone. I don't think any of us would be mad. We'd be like, hell yeah, the Undertaker can still maybe be the Undertaker. And it leaves that what if factor. Let's discuss the streak. So should the streak have ever ended? And if not Brock, then who should have ended it? So me personally, if it was up to me, I don't think the streak should have ever ended. I think it should have ended at 20-0. And then that would have been him riding off to the sunset. There was nothing more for him to do. But I understand why Brock was the first one to end, to give him a Mania loss, because Brock was just a super monster at that point. And anybody that can't grasp the fact that Brock shot himself, like catapulted into superstardom more so than he already was with that Mania win. He suplexed Cena, destroyed John Cena at SummerSlam, and pretty much made Brock what he is now. But if you guys could book anybody, would you guys have that streak ended? If you had to pick someone to end it, who would it be? Ameen, go first.
Just the fact that everyone didn't want to break the streak means that it should have stayed the way it was. I don't really have anything about when it should have ended or what year it should have or anything like that. But the fact that so many people turned it down, I just think it shouldn't have ended at all.
I don't think the streak should have ever ended. But if it were to have ended, I think it should have been because everyone at that time was talking about the Cena heel turn. Cena has to turn heel. He needs to switch up the character. I think it would have been a perfect time to have Cena like do some crap to beat the streak and make him the biggest heel in the business. I don't think the streak should have ever ended, but if they were to have, I think it should have done that to catapult Cena as this dastardly heel that everyone hates.
I mean, if you had to pick somebody to end it, I think it should have been Punk just based off how disrespectful he was moving that entire feud. So, like, he literally had everything and he did everything. And you can't just be that obnoxious and not break, like, not win.
I don't think the streak should have ended, but there's 3 people that I think if they were, that should have, and they all said no. I think from a business standpoint, it would have made the most sense to have Randy end it as the Legend Killer. And that's kind of where Taker, you brought up earlier, Lucas, that's kind of where Taker's Mania matches started to pick up more because let's be honest, up until Mania 21, because even the match that he had with Kane at WrestleMania 20, like it's fun to watch, but it's not a great match. All the matches he had for the most part were kind of shit at Mania. They were just kind of filler matches, you know, but everything from Randy on, he really just started to tear the house down. So I would have said either Randy, Edge, or Punk. That would have been who I picked. So Tyler, we were discussing this.
We were. Yeah.
So, who do you got?
I personally think it should have been Orton. I get why they didn't do it. I get why he didn't want to do it. But if anybody, I would have had to. It would have been Orton for me, just because he's the Legend Killer. And seeing Orton as like the Legend Killer in his first WB title reign, I honestly, 2007 Orton should have ended the streak. But also, phenomenal match with Batista. I wouldn't have minded if Batista would have ended it.
That's an interesting choice. I like Batista. I
liked their match. I thought their match was, in my opinion, really underrated. I don't see a lot of people talking about it.
And honestly, if you look back at the card at Mania 23, there was no reason that they should have been any match below there was no reason they should have been anything other than below Shawn and Cena.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're going to tell me that the ECW originals and the New Breed, they deserved to start over Undertaker, or the Diva match, or the fucking hair versus hair with Donald Trump.
Talk about that one. That one was so dumb. Oh my god.
But yeah, so what do you guys think is the best Hell in a Cell?
2002, hands down.
I agree.
Interesting.
I don't have any. I think Edge comes close. I even think the one with Batista comes close. But, you know, 2002, being as though like I'm the type of person that I am, I enjoy fights, which is why like I enjoyed Walter versus Ilya Dragunov most recently. That's one of the best matches I've watched, like I think all year, because it was just straight violence. So 2002 had just a certain level of violence that, you know, that shit just drove me insane. I loved every minute of it. There was no like, you know, I love technical people. I love submission. Like some of my favorite wrestlers are technical people. But when it comes to a Hell in a Cell match, all you want to see is violence.
I agree, man. I think it's 1A, 1B for me, and any day my answer could change. I have the two you listed. It's, to me, if I want to watch a Hell in a Cell match with Taker, I'm gonna watch either the one he had with Edge, which I watched today actually, or the one he had with Brock in 02. But when I have friends that ask me they want to get into wrestling, you know, most people that want to watch wrestling, they're not trying to watch the technical matches. They just want to watch people beat the shit out of each other.
Well, with the original, him and Sean, there's nothing in my opinion will ever top the original. It had the violence, but then it also had the good work of it. And the Kane debut.
That's gotta be
Top for me. I watched that one earlier today, and I don't like. A lot of people are gonna say the Mankind one, but if you look at that match, it's 2 spots, and the rest of it was.
No, it's him whooping Mankind's ass the whole match.
Yeah, true. I just don't think it was a fantastic match in general, other than those 2 spots. Probably because both of them were just beat to shit. The Brocco 2 one was fantastic. The Triple H one was
too damn long, but really good.
Exactly.
Agree.
We had a power outage for Mania 27 and more, and you might remember that, Tyler. Mm-hmm. There was like a crazy lightning storm, and the power was out, and my whole town didn't have it, and so I was mad as shit because I was going to order WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. So my parents bought 28 that next year. And me and my brother like split our money to do it or whatever because my brother was still into it. But I remember watching that Hell in a Cell and like, on one hand I was like, damn, this is long as hell. But then on the other hand, I was like, man, these spots are just so great. Like you're so drawn into it. And to me, it's like, that's kind of what wrestling is about. Like, that's why, I mean, sometimes, yeah, matches are, it kind of when they're as long as that one is, it does take away from the replay value of them. But you can't have like a 10-minute Hell in a Cell match. It doesn't really make any sense. That's what made Undertaker so great is his character. You could really insert any person into it and it would help establish them and establish a star, because Randy was great as the legend killer, but he didn't really get to be the Randy he is now until he went toe-to-toe with Taker.
That whole year-long feud. I watched that documentary the other day. It just makes me miss the days where I was like super excited to watch Raw and SmackDown every week, and even ECW whenever they revamped it for the first time or second time.
It's funny you say that. I was watching the December 18th episode of Raw from 2006, and you had Taker and Shawn, Shawn, Cena, and Batista all on one match. Like, and it wasn't even a pay-per-view match. They put that shit on Raw or on SmackDown, and then they did it again at a pay-per-view match.
Yeah, their No Way Out 07 match is phenomenal. That is one of my favorite tag team matches ever.
I want to discuss underrated Taker matches, and I have mine, and I don't know if I want to say it. I don't know that underrated. I think true wrestling fans love it, but when you're discussing Taker, most people don't. I think Taker's most underrated match or overlooked is his match with Angle at No Way Out.
Mm-hmm. I think Taker's series of matches that he's had with Rey Mysterio are a little bit overlooked, because you have one of the best big men in the business and then one of the best luchadors of all time, arguably the greatest of all time. And they had this random match on SmackDown one year. I think it was 2010. SmackDown was about to make the move to Sci-Fi, and they just threw them on a random episode of SmackDown. I remember, like, me as a kid, I was super into it because I had all the Rey Mysterio gear, had the mask and everything. I just think they have really good chemistry together, and I really enjoyed watching them work together in the ring.
Taker's always been really, really good with shorter, smaller stature wrestlers, and that's one thing he always brings up himself, because I think all of us can agree that when you discuss Taker, it's hard to not discuss his ladder match with Jeff.
I remember the first time I watched that match, I just figured out who Jeff Hardy was, because he was in TNA at the time, but I didn't know TNA existed.
None of us did.
Like early 2006, I think, is when he came back with like the cool ass, like black, like cut up shirt.
Yeah.
I cut up a lot of shirts trying to replicate that shirt. Anyway, I watched that match. I watched that match once every 4 months at least, just because it is, one, just a really solid story being told. Because as you know, Jeff Hardy at that time was known as like the tag team wrestler. They're like, there's no way he could be WWE champion. But the great thing about the Undertaker was, especially around his American Badass time, was I don't know. It just everything about that match just clicked. In fact, it was just like a match thrown on Raw. I think it solidified Jeff Hardy as a star. It made me sad that he left like a year later, but that match to me was what one solidified Jeff Hardy as, okay, I could potentially see this guy winning the world title one day. You earn the respect of the Undertaker. And it was just a really solid Raw ladder match. I can't believe they put it on free TV, but hey.
The only one I can think of is the one I was going to mention. I don't hear much about the TLC match with Edge.
Oh, at Extreme Rules?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the reason why that might be overlooked is because it was followed by the Hell in a Cell match.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I have one.
Let's hear it, Ameen.
Very overlooked, but everyone knows that it's a good match. The reason why it's overlooked because of the stipulation. The chairs match with Batista at TLC. That is a great match. I want to say it's overlooked just because no one likes the stipulation of a chairs match. There aren't any other good chairs matches, but that's a really great match that people overlook.
Is there anything you would have booked differently or would have booked in general with Taker? Like, what era would you have wanted to do something? Me personally, I don't think The Undertaker had enough world title reigns.
I don't think Big Evil was long enough. I think maybe if they started it, I can't even say they started it earlier. It was just like American Badass was just so bad.
I think personally, what they could have done is, I mean, it's hindsight's 2020. They should have had the Buried Alive match be in December and let him carry on, let him finish 03 out as the biker, and then have him start taunting Kane, and then have him come back as a dead man at WrestleMania 20.
Personally, from in like the late 2000s, I think the two biggest superstars in the company was Taker on SmackDown, Cena on Raw. It's a shame to me that we never got an actual like prime Undertaker and prime John Cena feud.
And being a big fan of both, huge missed opportunity, I feel like, with that.
It's kind of like you're going to book yourself into a corner, which they're prone to do. Who would you have go over? If they're both in their
Cena.
You have Cena?
Cena's younger.
I would do a 3-match series.
Also,
go ahead.
Taker went over at Vengeance 03, so
It's true. The Vengeance, that's what it was. One Unforgiven.
Yeah, I had said that. I guess the audio cut out. But yeah, I think you should have done a 3-match series. What would have been nuts is if they would have ended it and had Cena go over in a Hell in a Cell match with Taker. What do you guys think as far as world title reigns? What's the best one for him?
I think it came later in his career. I think the world title was made for The Undertaker to hold. To me, it never looked right with the WWE title or WWF title. It just, I don't know. Beautiful belt, but just didn't look right on him. But as soon as they got the big gold belt on Taker, especially he had that mini feud with CM Punk, which still is. I hated that feud. The WrestleMania 29 feud, phenomenal. The one they had in 2010, terrible. Probably 2010 run. He won the belt a couple of times. And I remember I was so hyped. I was like, oh, hell yeah, dude. I saw him as world champion at a live event one time. I was happy.
Ameen, what's your favorite Taker title reign?
Obviously the World Heavyweight Championship run in 2007. That's the one.
And I'm going to branch out from a world title. One of my little favorite little nuggets of Undertaker info is I loved the legitimacy that he brought to the hardcore title, because
I knew you were going to say that. I just knew it because I was thinking it.
That's why we're friends, man. So my favorite thing is we all remember that the hardcore title, they would just beat the shit out of you and like chase you down. Like people were getting chased out of airports. And when Taker got that belt, no one wanted to go after it. Like
Nobody wanted to smoke.
It started being advertised as an actual card match rather than a just anything goes, you know, because like his match he had with RVD where he just beat the living shit out of RVD was great. But yeah, I think I love that, man. I loved the legitimacy he brought to that belt. Let's discuss Kane, man. Like, because you know, obviously there would be no Kane without Undertaker, but you can argue that Kane helped elevate Taker as well.
My favorite memory, I have to say, is 2006 because, you know, I went to a boarding school. So, like, I didn't get to watch Raw and SmackDown weekly like everyone else did. So, when I seen Undertaker and Kane, like, tag up for the first time to face MVP and Mr. Kennedy, like, that was it for me. That was a moment I truly appreciated.
As a feud itself, it's fantastic. Them teaming together is fantastic. But their matches against each other, I don't think they ever had a great match. They just, for two people so intertwined, they had shit chemistry.
They didn't have any good normal matches, but if it was a match with a gimmick, like their Buried Alive match, I personally enjoyed that match a lot.
I like their Inferno match.
Yeah.
I want to ask everybody what their favorite, like, creepy-esque Taker moment is. Like, whether it was stalking Randy or the Stephanie stuff. What is you guys' your favorite Undertaker creepy moment? Lucas, go.
Probably Survivor Series 05, him coming out of the casket after the Randy match. And then him just coming out to the shock and just beat the shit out of everyone.
It's a good choice. Tyler?
Probably not really creepy. I just think it's hilarious whenever Teddy Long got in the back of the limo and then the thing rolls in like, "Where to, Teddy?"
That's a good one as well. Ameen, what do you got?
The WrestleMania 29 entrance, that has to be a great creepy moment, I guess, because of the hands reaching out to drag him to hell.
Yeah, those are solid choices. I think for me, mine is that whole episode where poor Randy, he was just getting terrorized. Where like every he would be in the back where they would be doing interviews, and then Taker's face would pop on the little screen, and the eyes would follow him as he walked. And then Randy looked into the mirror, and then it had all that blood on his face, and then he saw the blood on his dad, and his dad was like, "Randy, are you okay?" And he like backed off, and then he gets in the car, and Taker stalks him in the car. I think as far as his creepy-esque moments where he like was just constantly messing with people, I think the Randy stuff is the best, man. Like he tortured that man. Favorite WrestleMania match with Taker? Let's go.
Batista.
What? Why Batista?
I don't even like. It's one. I'm not one really for hoss fights. Two big guys. Very rarely do I feel like they put on good matches, and just Undertaker and Batista. I don't even know why I love it so much. There's just something about it. I think it was. Yeah, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just I love that match.
They tore the house down every time they wrestled. Ameen, what's your favorite Taker WrestleMania match?
Obviously, 2008 with Edge. That's my guy. Those are my guys. Also, my favorite Undertaker moment at WrestleMania, 2004, his first entrance as the Phenom. It's amazing.
I remember watching that Mania live, and we ordered the pay-per-view, and I wasn't scared of Taker, but for some reason Paul Bear creeped me out because I would have been 9 when that Mania happened, because it was 2004. So yeah, I would have been 9, and I remember just the second I heard Paul Bearer's voice, I was like, what the heck? Like I was so creeped out. But I remember like when Taker took that hat off, it was just so like, holy shit, we're about to see something great. Tyler, you got a favorite Mania match?
I got like a 3-way tie. Obviously, Shawn Michaels and Undertaker's first WrestleMania match at 25. I love that match. I love the light and dark aspect. I love the Batista match a lot. As a kid, I legitimately thought Batista would be the one to beat him. Just because he was an unstoppable monster. He was a world champion. I was like, this guy's got it. He didn't, but... And honestly, I don't know what it is about it. I loved his match with Shane McMahon at 32.
Really?
I did. I don't know why.
That's kind of a hot take to have.
I just personally... It was long, yeah, but... and I don't know if I just enjoy it because I didn't see Shane McMahon for like 7 or 8 years before, and I missed him doing like stupid stuff off the top rope and just jump off of things. But I just really enjoyed it.
I mean, the obvious answer is I think the Shawn Michaels Undertaker WrestleMania 25 is the greatest wrestling match ever. I'm a big fan of his match with Punk at Mania. I absolutely. I mean, I'm a big Punk fan, and I love Taker. And just the build up to it, and like they talked about it on the Mortician documentary about Paul Bearer, where they were sitting back and they were wondering if it was disrespectful, and then they were like, no, Paul would have absolutely wanted this. Like he would have wanted to be a focal point of a storyline at WrestleMania, and I just think it works so well, man. Like Heyman coming out with the urn, and the build up to that too was phenomenal. Like I laugh every time I see Heyman dressed up like Paul Bearer, and then Punk being like, "Oh yeah," like with the urn and stuff. Like it's so disrespectful, but it's so funny. Such good. In the words of Vince, such good shit. All right, GGTV. That was us discussing the Undertaker and what he meant to wrestling.